All right, espresso fans. Ready for a shot of something a little different today.
Always up for a new blend. What ya got brewing?
So get this right. For a while there, in the early 1900s,
Okay.
they had actual art competitions at the Olympics
Oh, wow.
with medals and everything.
Did not know that.
I'm talking painting,
Yeah.
sculpture, music, the whole shebang. Seriously, when I first heard this, I thought it was a joke.
Yeah, I can see why that's pretty unexpected.
So obviously we had to dig into this,
Right.
unpack this whole forgotten chapter of Olympic history, right?
Sounds fascinating. So where do we even start with this?
Well, I guess the first question is like, how did this even happen? Like, who thought this was a good idea?
Well, you got to go back to the OG, Baron Pierre de Coubertin,
The founder of the modern Olympics.
the one and only. He was
Okay.
really passionate about this idea of like the well-rounded individual,
I see.
mind and body, the whole package.
Okay.
So for him, art was like essential to that vision, to the true Olympic spirit.
So it wasn't just about being physically strong.
Exactly. It was about pushing human potential in all its forms.
Okay, so that explains the why.
Right.
But 5 categories. Really?
That's Coubertin for sure. Yeah, always thinking big.
I mean, architecture, literature, music, painting, sculpture.
I know. And here's the kicker.
What's that?
All the artwork had to be inspired by sport.
Wait, seriously? So like a painting of a javelin thrower?
Or a sculpture of a marathon runner.
A symphony about, like, the thrill of victory?
Exactly. It was all about capturing the essence of the games.
Wow, talk about a creative challenge.
Oh, absolutely. So imagine you're an artist in, say, 1924,
Okay.
and you've got this chance to, like, have your art displayed at the Olympics alongside the athletes.
That's got to be a pretty unique opportunity for
Sure,
sure.
yeah. And some pretty big names actually took part.
Oh, really? So it wasn't just like amateur hour?
Oh, no, not at all. For instance, John Russell Pope, the guy who designed the Jefferson Memorial,
Yeah?
won a silver medal in architecture in 1932 for designing a gymnasium at Yale.
Wow, I had no idea. So we're talking legitimate, established artists here.
Yeah. And that makes you wonder, right? Like, what did those medals mean to them to be recognized for their art on a global stage like the Olympics?
That's a good question, yeah.
It's definitely a side of Olympic history that most people don't know about.
So we've got this cool concept, right? Some big names are into it,
Mm-hmm.
but then things start to change. What happened?
Well, like with any competition, I guess,
Yeah.
there's going to be some controversy.
Right.
Judging art is, super subjective.
Of course.
And there were accusations of inconsistency and bias, things like that.
Yeah, you can imagine.
And also trying to define, like, what even counts as a Olympic art. That must have been tricky.
Yeah, like where's the line between art and like sports propaganda?
Exactly. Finding that balance, artistic integrity versus the whole sports theme, that must have been tough.
Did that play a role in the decline of the art competitions?
Probably, at least partly.
I bet there were some heated debates about it.
I can only imagine. But
Yeah.
there's another kind of bigger factor that really sealed the deal.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What was that?
A guy named Avery Brundage. He became president of the International Olympic Committee after World War II.
Oh, right. Brundage. Wasn't he like super strict about amateurism in sports?
Oh, yeah, he was obsessed with it. And he basically saw art as, like, inherently professional.
What do you mean?
Well, because artists, they sell their work.
Oh, wait.
So in his mind, that made them pros, not amateurs.
So no place for them in his Olympics.
Exactly. But here's where it gets interesting.
Lay on me.
Brundage himself competed in the 1932 games in literature.
Wait, hold up. The guy who basically killed the art competitions was an Olympic art competitor.
Yep. And he even gained an honorable mention.
Wow. Talk about irony.
It really shows how complicated this whole story is, right?
Absolutely.
You've got this big vision from Coubertin, talented artists, eager to compete, judging headaches, and then Brundage comes in and boom, art's out.
So even with all the passion and effort, Brundage's influence really shut it all down.
This is some wild stuff, and we're just scratching the surface. When we come back, we'll dive into some of the amazing individuals who took part in these competitions and explore what their Olympic journey meant to them. Makes you wonder, though, right? Like, what if they had continued? The art competitions.
Oh, yeah. What would that even look like today? Olympic medals for, like, TikTok dances?
Well, maybe not TikTok. But yeah, the possibilities are kind of mind-blowing.
Right. Think about all the new art forms that have popped up since the 40s.
Mm-hmm.
We could have Olympic gold medalists in, like digital art, street art, maybe even video game design.
Yeah. And it makes you think about how the Olympics themselves might be different.
Totally.
Would it make art more prestigious or maybe more commercialized? It's a real what-if moment in history.
Yeah, totally.
For sure.
Before we go too far down that rabbit hole, though,
Okay.
you mentioned earlier that some of the winners were, like, big name.
Yeah,
Can we talk about that a bit more? Because it really shows how seriously some people took these competitions.
absolutely. It's easy to think it was just like hobbyists on the side, but it was more than that.
Yeah, like you said, John Russell Pope, the Jefferson Memorial architect.
Right. And there were others too.
Oh, yeah. Like who?
Well, for instance, the Olympic Stadium for the 1928 Games in Amsterdam,
Okay.
that was designed by the guy who won the gold medal in architecture that year.
Wow, so he won for his own stadium. That's pretty meta.
Exactly. It shows how intertwined art and sport were back then.
And it wasn't just architecture, right?
Nope. Rembrandt Bugatti, the sculptor, he was Ettore Bugatti's brother, the car guy.
Oh, wow.
He didn't win any medals, but still, pretty big name to be involved.
That's true.
And then there's the case of Alfred Hochhaus.
Who that?
Hungarian swimmer, won 2 golds at the very first modern Olympics in 1896.
Oh, cool.
But get this, 28 years later, he teams up with this architect, Desul Lauber, to design a stadium, and they win a silver medal in the architecture competition.
So he was an Olympic champ in both sport and art. That's incredible.
Talk about a double threat.
Really embodies Coubertin's vision, right?
Absolutely. It shows that these art competitions weren't just some sideshow, they were the real deal.
Yeah, I'm starting to see that.
They attracted real talent and created some amazing works.
Makes you think about those medals,
Yeah.
what they must mean to the families of those artists.
Right. A real piece of history, a reminder of a time when the Olympics were about more than just athletic achievement.
Yeah, about celebrating creativity and excellence in all forms.
Exactly.
Well said. So where does that leave us today? What can we learn from all this?
I think it challenges our ideas about what the Olympics are, what they could be.
Okay.
It's like a reminder to be open to new ideas, even if they're kind of out there.
Think outside the box, right?
Yeah, break free from the traditional boundaries of what's Olympic worthy.
Interesting.
And maybe, just maybe, it sparks a conversation about bringing back that spirit in a way that works for today's world.
Now that would be something to see. So let's say, just for fun, the Olympics actually said, you know what? Let's bring back art competitions. What would that even look like today? I mean, how do you judge something as subjective as art on a global stage?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? It's not like timing a race, you know?
Right.
Right.
It's all about interpretation and personal taste and all that.
Exactly. So I think the first step would be to kind of redefine what we even mean by art in this context.
Okay, so not just like paintings and sculptures.
Right. Coubertin's vision was all about those traditional fine arts, but the art world today is way more diverse.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, you've got digital art, performance art, street art, even video games could be considered an art form.
Yeah, the lines are definitely blurred these days.
Totally. So the challenge would be to create categories that are inclusive, that reflect what's happening in the art world now, but still, fit with the Olympic spirit.
So like digital innovation or cultural expression through movement.
Exactly. Something like that. And the judging criteria would have to be carefully thought out, too.
So not just like, is this a pretty picture?
Right. It would be more about things like creativity, originality, technical skill, maybe even the emotional impact of the work.
I see. So less about crowning the best artist and more about celebrating the power of art,
Yeah, to connect with people, spark conversation, maybe even challenge perspectives.
And honestly, that feels very Olympic to me.
Right. It's all about pushing boundaries, inspiring people.
Totally. Imagine the opening ceremonies with like dancers and visual artists alongside the athletes. Maybe even some kind of crazy collaborative performance.
Oh, that would be amazing. A true celebration of human creativity.
Okay, last question, and be honest. Do you think this could actually happen? Art at the Olympics. I mean, in our lifetime.
That's a tough one. I mean, there would be hurdles, for sure.
Like what?
Well, logistics, for one.
Yeah.
Getting everyone on board, figuring out funding, dealing with folks who think art and sport should stay separate.
Yeah, I can see that.
But there's also this growing feeling that the Olympics need to evolve, to stay relevant, especially for younger generations.
And art could be a way to do that, right?
Exactly. Art has this power to connect, to inspire, that could really breathe new life into the games.
So maybe, just maybe, it's not such a crazy idea after all.
Who knows? Maybe someone listening right now will be inspired to take up the cause. make Olympic art a reality.
Well, if that happens, you heard it here first on Podcast Espresso. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Olympic art competitions. It's been a wild ride learning about this forgotten chapter of history. And hey, maybe someday we'll be cheering on our favorite artists at the Olympics right alongside our favorite athletes. Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep that Olympic spirit burning bright.